Happy Monday, everybody, and happy Labor Day. Hope everyone had a fantastic weekend where they got a little rest and relaxation because football season is here. It is game week, week 1 of the 2023 NFL regular season. John Schmelk, Paul Dottino, Lance Meadow with you. We will get to your calls early and often at 201-939-4513, 201-939-4513. And this is the week we're going to take some of your bold predictions. I know some of you have gotten them in already, but if you want to give us a call over the next couple of days before we get heavy into game preview stuff with Giants and Cowboys, which of course kick off the Giants season on Sunday Night Football, you can certainly do that. We'll keep track of them in our little document here, and then we'll go embarrass ourselves at the end of the regular season with what people selected as their bold predictions. Gentlemen, how are your weekends? Paulie Dots?
Yeah, pretty good, John, although I have to say my stress level was at an all-time high because to have this bye week between the preseason and the regular season just has me bouncing off the ceiling.
Hold on a second. I talked to you. Wasn't your wife on vacation with a friend this weekend?
Oh, her and her sister.
Yeah, so you got the house to yourself. You went to Springsteen. How are you stressed out?
Well, no, she came back on Thursday.
Oh, okay. I
went to see Bruce on Friday.
Okay.
And by the way, he's still born to run.
Lance, how about you? Just working?
Business as usual. Yes.
Just working?
Indeed.
And then you heard Lance, you were on 8 to 11 this morning, 8 to 10 on Sirius, 7 to 10, something like that with Ryan Leaf. So, all right, guys, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to do we did our NFL season preview on the Friday show. So go back, check that out. We go by division to by division.
Yeah.
We do award winners, all that all that stuff. Go check that out on Friday's show on our Giants mobile app, giants.com/podcast, your favorite podcast platform. So go check that out. Today, we're going to do more of a focus on the Giants. We're going to get through it kind of quick. We'll do a teeny little bit on Giants and Cowboys, and then we will get to your calls at 201-939-4513. All right, guys, so instead of doing the same stuff we've done all summer and just repeating ourselves ad nauseum, I'm going to pose a couple of questions which I think are pertinent on both sides of the ball, and we'll see if we answer them similarly or differently as we go. Paul, I'm going to start with you. I know you're the eternal optimist here. You predicted 10 or 11 wins on Friday's show.
Yep.
So I'm going to go this. Paul, what's the thing you're most worried about going wrong this year that could short-circuit your prediction and knock the Giants out of the playoffs?
You want me to give you 3 in order?
You can give me
I'll give you 3 in order. I'll give you 3 in order.
Go ahead.
Number 1, special teams coverage. I'd like to believe that Tywan Jones, the running back they just brought in from the Bills, who is a special teams demon, he was signed to the practice squad. I don't think that's a mistake. I think that was done with the sole intent of enhancing the Giants' special teams.
I'm sure they purposely signed him to the practice squad. They weren't trying to sign him to the active roster.
No. But a lot of people were like, he's 34 years old. He's a running back who barely plays running back. Why did they bother signing him? There was some criticism in the media.
He was with the Raiders for most of his career, correct?
Started with the Raiders and actually spent more time with Buffalo than he did the Raiders.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, he started with the Raiders, though, back in 2011. He was a 4th-round draft pick out of Eastern Washington. And in the last 3 years, he's played over 800 snaps on special teams combined and has 17 special teams tackles in 47 games. This is what he does. He plays on all the coverage units, and he was their special teams captain. So he was signed to the practice squad at 34 years old. I think he was brought in here with the thinking that he'll be a practice squad activation at the beginning. And if he proves that he's still got gas left in his tank, he may wind up being the X factor as the special teams demon that this team could really use on the coverage units.
Okay, that's 1.
Okay, so that's 1. 2, I am concerned about the fluidity and the gelling of the offensive line. The starting 5 have had very few snaps together, and that's a big deal for me. And number 3, the 2 rookie corners. I mean, they will make rookie mistakes. Mark Haynes made a ton of them when he was a rookie and got burned a lot and then turned into a Pro Bowl guy a couple of years later. Well, how often will opponents be able to take advantage of Banks and Hawkins and make the Giants pay in a very serious way? So those are my 3 in order.
All right, you hit my number 2 and 3. Those are my 1 and 2, one on each side of the ball. I would put probably corners a little ahead of the offensive line, opposite side of you, but those to me are my 2 concerns as well.
Yeah.
Lance, how about you?
Yeah, I would echo those sentiments. I think the concern about the youth at cornerback, especially when you look at what's in the division and the receivers that they're going to go up against, you have to at least take that into consideration. And then on top of that, the interior of the offensive line. The 2 guards in the center. Even without the gelling point that you were talking about, Paul, I'm looking at it more of the heavy lifters in the division with Dallas and Philadelphia. How do they stand up to that? And then also who they're going to go up against in the AFC East. Okay, the Jets, the Bills, the Dolphins, Patriots, all really good defenses that are going to test specifically the interior of the offensive line. And then the third one I would throw in would be if there's going to be more of an approach to be aggressive on offense this season, and Daniel Jones is going to take more chances down the field, and they're going to really open up the playbook, can you keep the turnovers in check, which was really good last season? Or does that go up a little bit because, once again, you have that more aggressive approach and a little bit more passing? So that would be the third item. Maybe not as worried as the first two, but I would round out my three with the turnovers.
I think that's a good one. All right, so now I'm going to put this on the other side, and Lance, you can lead off with this. What are the one or two things, because in your NFL preview for the Giants, you did not have them in the playoffs.
Correct.
So what for you has to go right? What could maybe defy your expectations to get this team into the postseason or even challenge for a division title?
Well, I'll start with, once again, I think the two rookie corners really need to exceed expectations this season and hold their ground against, once again, in the division, the receiving core, and then where they're going to be battle-tested outside. You want to see, not necessarily interceptions. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for solid coverage and limiting explosive plays. If those two guys could do that, that's when all of a sudden you now move up the ladder, specifically even within the division. The interior of the offensive line, I think, needs to hold up and needs to be as strong in pass protection as the ability to perhaps run protect for Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. And then I would say the third item that has to go right is we talked all offseason about bringing in A'Shaun Robinson, Nacho, and Bobby Okereke. If they finish with a top 5 run defense, okay, I'm going to put the standard very high.
That is high.
Okay, I am. But I think they're capable of doing that with the personnel they have in that grouping. If that group can achieve that status, that's when all of a sudden you start limiting a plethora of weapons that you're going to see over the course of the season. And I think that can make the Giants even that much more dangerous on defense and also alleviate the pressure from those two young corners.
All right, the two items I'll add to that very quickly is something you brought up in your previous answer, Lance, is a more dynamic passing game on offense. If you really want to, surpass Dallas, right, and catch Philly, you need to be a more consistent, dynamic passing attack. And we've gone through that all offseason. You had the speed, Darren Waller's addition, staying healthy. That's all great. My second one, and I don't think we need to get, last year, one of the last teams in the league, 20-plus passes. We've been over this a million times.
Right.
The other one I'll throw in there, and I'll focus on an individual player for this one, and you can do that too, Paul, or you can take a bigger topic, however you want to cover it. Evan Neal's got to be better. Lance talked about the interior of the offensive line, right? Well, last year there was way too much consistent pressure off the right side of that Giants offensive line. And Evan Neal, you hope he continues to improve in year number 2. There's no reason to think he won't. But development of players are not a straight line, right? You have peaks, you have valleys. They go up and down. And I think the Giants need him to be significantly better, because if you need to consistently hold in your running back or hold in a tight end to help on that side in pass pro, that's going to limit point number 1, explosive passing. And that's going to limit all the interesting things they've done with Saquon Barkley as a wide receiver in training camp. So that, to me, is the other thing that I'll kind of, put a little check mark next to. If the Giants can do those two things, if the right tackle can be better consistently as a pass protector, and they can be more explosive on offense, and I think those two things are also tied together.
Yeah.
I think that's where, you know what? Now we're talking about winning a couple playoff games and maybe competing.
Yeah, and John, in a way, that's 1 and 1A for you, I think, because if Neal's better, the bigger plays will happen.
They're absolutely connected. No question.
They really are. So I'll go with the explosive plays on offense easily. That's unanimous.
Yep.
We've killed that topic. My God.
Yeah.
And I kind of debate my second reason why they could challenge for the division and exceed just a playoff spot like I think they'll get. And I'm kind of struggling between Lance's answer about the rush defense, which I think the additions should significantly, not just a bit, but a lot.
Yeah, but it's funny. I just feel so confident because of the improved personnel. I'm almost not even worried about that at this point.
Yeah. Well, you know what, though?
Well, maybe I should be. I don't know.
Well, they still got to get on the field and do it.
100%.
Right?
Yep. That's fair.
Past history is no guarantee of future results, as they tell you in Wall Street.
Different players in a different scheme and the whole 9 yards.
So
all fair points.
I kind of am waffling between that and the flip side of the explosive plays, because if the Giants' rookie corners in terms of their mistakes, if those mistakes turn into 50-yard bombs and 35-yard touchdown passes, explosive plays on the other side, that can be very, very bad.
Which, by the way, I think we all thought they were going to give up more of those last year.
And they didn't.
The cornerback situation was even worse last year than it is this year.
Right.
But they managed to limit it. Now, here's the trick, though. How much of that was a product of the teams they played against, being unable to take advantage of that?
Better weaponry on the other side of the field in
And
this schedule.
Quarterbacks.
No question.
100%.
No question.
Last year, we talked about this a million times. You had all those AFC South teams. Then you had the teams in the NFC. And even in some of the good quarterbacks they faced, the Ravens had no wide receivers left by the time the Giants played them.
Right.
The Packers were still Christian Watson had not really evolved yet at that point when the Giants played them in London. So even the better teams with the better quarterbacks, they hadn't really kind of hit their mojo yet at that point, or didn't at all year, to be honest with you.
And another thing that helped the Giants out a little bit compared to this year is that Fabian Moreau was an experienced veteran.
Yep.
At least he had a clue as to what he was doing, and he wasn't like a deer in headlights. And all rookies, to some degree, are going to have a little bit of that in them.
Look, corners are going to get beat. Rookie corners are going to get beat. It's going to happen.
Plus, you also had Julian Love, too, on the roster as well. So
he helped out those guys, a lot. Even Nick McLeod.
Absolutely.
Had some experience in this league.
He was
when
a 3-4 year pro,
Yeah, Tony Jefferson was on the roster, too. I mean, you had a lot of experience.
So these two young guys, make your mistakes, but don't make them fatal mistakes.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. To your point, Paul, if you give up those explosive plays down the field, that's going to put a lot more pressure on the run defense to clean it up.
No doubt.
So, for example, if you give up big bombs and teams get in the red zone, who do you think is going to have to now rely on making sure you hold the opponent to a field goal? Yeah. It's the big guys up front. That's why I was pinpointing the run defense, because I'm accounting for there could be ups and downs on the back end.
I understand that.
Okay, next question. Lance, I'll go to you first on this one. Give me your breakout player for the Giants in 2023.
Well, the guy that I think has to be the breakout player. Okay?
Who will be the breakout player?
Well, I'll go with he will, but he
it.
has to. Okay?
Wow.
It's got to be Azeez Ojulari. It has to be. He has to be the breakout player, meaning he has to stay on the field, and he has to produce to the degree of you can rely on him each and every game. You know what you're getting out of him. It can't be Dexter Lawrence and question marks in terms of production. Or if you want to throw Leonard Williams in there too. Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari, if this defense is to get to another height, especially in the pressure, the sack department, the quarterback hit, Azeez has to stay on the field. He has to have a breakout campaign. So to me, it starts and ends with Ojulari.
My selection's the same, so Paul will go right to you.
Yeah, you know why I'm not going to go there? Because I think if Ojulari should go down, Isaiah Simmons could take that spot. And I think they could get a lot of the same production that they were hoping for.
Though, Paul?
As an everyday player on every down player on the edge?
if they had to, what they could do is use a combination of Fox and Simmons or Zimenez and Simmons. And I think, given the fact that Ojulari has not put up big numbers in either of his first two seasons, I don't think it would be hard for a combination of guys by committee to get 5 sacks.
Yeah, but his sacks per snap rate
are incredible,
and his ceiling is higher. His ceiling is higher.
Absolutely,
too, so,
I totally understand that. I'm going to, believe it or not, I'm going to go with Pinnock.
Okay, I like that
because I'm kind of concerned that the depth there is Belton as the third safety, but behind him is McCain. I kind of want to keep Bobby McCain as the fourth safety. I don't want him playing on a regular basis as the third safety in a 3-safety package. I like where it is with Pinnock as the 2 to McKinney and Belton as the 3. So I think that Pinnock needs to prove that he can be an every down starter for the season. I think from a step up, he would be my guy.
Okay, final question, and then we'll do one quick thing on the game, and then we'll get to your calls. Give me your pivotal player. And maybe we've probably already touched on the guys in the course of our conversation here, but what's the one guy that you think could turn this season for good or bad? Lance, why don't we start with you?
Well, I'll go to the offensive side of the ball, not to be repetitive, since I named Azeez Ojulari. I said this all offseason. Now that he's off PUP, Wan'Dale Robinson. Because if we're going to talk about explosive plays, Wan'Dale has the ability. This is not the deep ball guy, okay? We could sit here and talk about Darius Slayton and Jalen Hyatt. I'm talking about a guy who you make a 5 to 10 yard pass to and can then gain another 10 to 20 yards off of that catch. He's got that catch and run ability. If he stays healthy and does what he did against the Lions, that's when all of a sudden we get to the point of what you were talking about, an offense that can increase its scoring. And we're talking about they need to boost it by a good 5 to 6 points this season if they want to get into the status of Dallas and Philadelphia. Because, guys, we're talking about 21.5 points last season.
Right.
Okay? You can't go out and score that and expect to win consistently. It doesn't work like that. Look at all of the offenses in the postseason last season. They were hovering in that 26 to 30 department. So do the math. Wan'Dale Robinson factors into that.
Paul, how about you?
Yeah, for me, I understand that, and you could easily go with Hyatt as well.
Sure.
Because he could be a guy who could be a huge X factor
deep
because
ball.
of those
Yeah.
explosive plays.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Waller because...
Damn you, Paul. You took my answer. Go ahead.
Well, we can agree.
No, I know. That's fine. No, I wanted to go ahead.
Because
It's fine.
I think,
we're all on the same page. It's just funny. We talked about this for so long over the offseason. We're all aligned at
I
this
know.
point. It
Well,
doesn't make any
Waller's had
difference.
2,000-yard seasons. I think he will be the Giants' leading receiver this year in terms of yardage. He will have over 1,000 yards and become the second tight end in Giants history to do so. Mark Bavaro is the only one who's ever done it. Shockey didn't do it. Bob Tucker didn't do it. Okay? Evan Ingram didn't do it. Okay? None of these guys did it. Bavaro was the only one. Waller's going to be the second Giants tight end to get 1,000 yards in a season. And to me, that just is the key. It's the spark. It's the firecracker that sets this explosive offense in motion.
And what makes it pivotal is the fact that he's been hurt the last 2 years.
Correct.
So he needs to stay healthy.
Yeah.
And that's a huge part of this. If Darren Waller is out for a large period of time this year, I think any hope, to Lance's point, of getting the offense into that over 24 points per game type of range probably falls by the wayside. I think it's going to be very, very tough to do that. So, yes, him being great. I mentioned Evan Neal already, so I don't want to repeat myself on that. I think he's also extremely pivotal to how this season will go. And then, look, I'll cycle it back to the two rookie corners then, just to talk about a different group. We talked about them already, and it doesn't have to be just one of them, all right? It's got to be both. If one of them's good, you know what other teams are going to do? They're just going to attack the other one. Defense is very much a weak link-based system, right?
The Achilles.
Even if they hit on one or two of them, teams will find, and it does not take them long usually, they will find the weak link, and they will just endlessly target that player until you figure out a way to either mitigate his weaknesses or get his butt off the field. So you need both of those corners. Now, you don't need them both to be Pro Bowlers. You don't need them both to be All-Stars or All-Pros or even, top half of the league corners, all right? But neither one of them can stink, all right?
They
And
need
just
to be reliable,
bad early.
essentially.
They need to be solid starting NFL corners. They're all rookie corners are going to give up plays. It happens, all right? It's going to happen. And you're going to get mad, but they can't be guys that you can get relentlessly targeted in these individual games. And I don't think they're going to be that, but they're rookie cornerbacks. So that is the last couple names I'll kind of throw in.
If I may...
No. Go ahead.
One of the ways that you can help alleviate that is with a dynamite pass rush. And that's why I would probably throw Kayvon Thibodeau into that mix.
I was surprised one of you guys didn't pick him, to be honest with you.
Because if Thibodeau can become a consistent impact player, and we saw flashes of it last year, John, but only really in the second half of the season. I guess it started with the Baltimore game when he caused that fumble
that
with
strip
Lamar
sack,
Jackson.
yeah.
That's where it started.
He made some big plays at opportune times.
He really did.
The Washington game too. He had the
No
big one for
question.
the safety, right?
So if he can become a consistent impact guy, I think that can also become a difference maker for this team, and it would do a lot for those corners because now you got a nervous quarterback back there.
All right, let's go to matchups now for Dallas, and then we'll get to your calls at 201-939-4513. All right, what's your one as we kind of kick off Dallas week here, and then we'll obviously get into this game a lot more over the next 4 days. We're all on various days doing Big Blue Kickoff Live. Give me that one matchup or thing, whatever that one major thing is you're thinking about, Paul, this week heading into the game.
Wow. I think you could make a very strong case for the whole Adoree Jackson, CeeDee Lamb thing because Adoree's going into the slot and Lamb is the most prolific, I think, Dallas Cowboys receiver in the room.
Yeah, one of the best in the league, for sure.
He's outstanding.
Yeah.
Okay, so you could go there. I think that's too easy, though. I do. I think that's too easy. For me, I'm probably more concerned of Gallup going against Banks.
Or Hawkins.
Or
either one of
Hawkins.
them.
Yeah, whoever. I don't know if they're going to flip him or travel him or where they're going to go.
I'm more worried about Cooks. I like where your mind is at, but my concern is Cooks. Because
are.
he has more speed than Gallup does.
Yeah.
And he's a savvier route runner.
That's why I think the Giants will cheat against him.
Oh, well, if the Giants put extra guys over Cooks, then that'll mitigate the problem.
I think they'll
sure.
cheat sometimes with their safety against Cooks because they're worried about his savvy and his experience to manipulate a rookie corner.
You don't think they're going to help on Lamb?
I think they might trust Adoree to handle it.
Because remember, they put Adoree on Jefferson last year in the playoffs. But you watch that tape? He was not alone.
No, he was not.
There were like
no,
two
he was not.
or three guys, depending on the play, that were
That is true.
Jefferson.
You only have so many guys, though.
Well, no. That's why I asked you the question, though. Because, Wink is one of those guys, Lance, where he's not going to want to let that one game breaker beat you.
Yeah.
And I wonder if he's going to, try to help out on Lamb. And I think the wide receiver cornerback thing will be fascinating this week.
Well, Lamb is probably the best athlete of the three in terms of what he could do and where he can line up. But Brandon Cooks, to me, he's the Amari Cooper replacement, who they never really had on the roster last season. He is the most polished route runner, and if you remember, when Amari was on the team, Dak always knew where he was. They had a really good rapport.
Sure they did.
So I think Cooks is going to be that insurance policy, security blanket, however you want to word it, for Dak, where in key moments, he's probably going to toss it up to Brandon Cooks, maybe more so than any of the other guys. And that's somebody that maybe when you least suspect could come up with a big play. Because Cooks, he could be the type of guy that could have 8 catches for 80 yards, so he gets 10 yards per catch, and then he could be the same guy that has the 30-yard bomb.
Oh, he's got a
down the
long
field.
track record.
Correct.
Oh, yeah, remember,
No, but he could be a vertical threat, is my point.
Yeah, he ran fourth. People forget. I know it was a long time ago now. 4.33 at the NFL Combine. That dude could run.
Sure. And he hasn't let down in terms of the
he's
year
fast.
and the mileage that he has on the body.
He reminds me of remember Ted Ginn? He kept playing. He was 32. He still was running past every except I think he's a
more
much better
accomplished
hand
receiver.
and is a much
better
more
player.
Correct.
100%.
Yeah.
I was
No
just talking
doubt
about
about-
age.
No, you're talking about speed and
how
age, yeah.
speed aged well in
Yeah.
another player.
It did.
Yeah.
It certainly did.
And I don't want to mention the other guy that Giant fans know about.
No,
either,
do
where the
not.
speed aged very
We
well.
just assume you leave that one alone.
I did. I didn't say the name.
Okay.
All right, Lance. How about you?
Well, I think it comes back to the trenches. I mean, if you go back to the last 2 meetings last season, Dallas dominated the Giants in that area. I don't think it was
Absolutely.
a contest.
Nope.
So if you want to talk about, we've heard closing the gap left and right. I mean, if I had a nickel for every time I heard that phrase this offseason,
And I say it more than everybody. That's on me.
No, I'm not calling you out. I'm talking everybody saying it, right?
I
Closing
take
the
pride
gap.
in it.
Closing the
Absolutely.
gap, okay? Well, if you want to close the gap, how about we start in the trenches, guys?
right, you're
okay?
right. Yeah.
How about the
sure.
Giants go out and they prove that DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons don't become the disruptive forces that they were all of last season?
Game wreckers.
And I'm not talking about sacks. Just look at the quarterback hits for the game last season.
And the pressures.
Yes, 100%. That's where the conversation starts because, guys, all the other facets that we're talking about, the explosive plays, the improvement in scoring, it all starts, and I don't need to convince you because you preach this, it all starts there, okay? So that's the matchup to watch. The tackles against those edge rushers, and I still think it's going to be decided on the interior because Dan Quinn's going to find ways to test John Michael Schmitz and the 2 guards.
See,
that's happening.
That's why I almost think the more curious matchup isn't actually on the field. It's Dan Quinn against Schmitz. Schmitz is calling out the protections. This rookie center is calling out the protections against a defensive coordinator who's going to do everything he can to make Schmitz's life miserable.
And managing all those interior twists and stunts that they run.
Yes.
And the other thing I'll throw out there, too, and I think, you guys are hitting, I agree with both of you on everything you just said. Where do the Cowboys line up Micah Parsons?
All over the place.
Yeah, but I think, do we see him over Andrew Thomas more, or do we see him over Neal more?
I think, I said this on a show I was just on last night. If I'm Dan Quinn, I am going to make sure that not only am I flopping Parsons left and right, but I am stunting him almost every play.
Yeah, because you don't want the Giants to be able to account for him and double team him every play.
There was a guy from the Bristol Network who had said the other day on a show.
That would be ESPN.
The Bristol Network?
Correct. I had no idea. I didn't want to give them free advertisement.
Lance, they had a very subtle rebranding over the weekend.
Oh, absolutely.
They are now dinning it, the Bristol
No,
Network.
and actually, hold on a minute.
Wait a minute.
No.
always killing me for giving out free advertisement.
They're an NFL partner.
Okay.
They're a household name. This is not like for headaches, okay? Medicine that we're trying to give out. But just so you know, part of the rebranding, they are actually located now Bristol, Tennessee. Okay, it's not Bristol, Connecticut. No, that was part of the rebranding.
Anyway,
well, go ahead.
The point that he made was, Evan Neal didn't have a good year last year. If I'm Dan Quinn, I take Micah Parsons and line him up on him all game long until he stops him. And I said, are you serious?
No, I mean, I would do
that
a lot.
makes no sense. Now, in key spots, maybe that's where he's going to be. But if you keep him there the entire time, the Giants will find it too easy to scheme that.
Oh, no, Paul. But did you not listen to the second? I wasn't even listening, and this annoying me. Did you not listen to the second part of his sentence? Until they stop it. So you have him line up over Neal.
It was his.
Then when they stop it, then you move him.
It was his opinion. No, it was his opinion. He was
okay.
talking. He was talking like hypothetically because he was trying to say that Neal can't stop him and that you should line him up on Neal all night long. And I think that's foolish. I mean, if I'm Quinn, I'm going to have Parsons coming from each and every direction possible and mix that up to cause Schmitz to have headaches. If you put him over Neal every snap the entire night, the Giants will be able to scheme that.
Well, you become predictable. Plus, I mean, also...
It doesn't make any sense.
But here's the thing. If you go based on last season, Dan Quinn moved Parsons around. I find it hard to believe that he's not going to repeat that, especially to your point against the rookie center.
The last thing I'll bring up is how these teams are different from last year. Because I think we saw in the two games last year, even though the Giants were close early in those two games, once you got to the second half, there was some separation there between the two teams, right? You saw the Cowboys kind of pull away in those two games. You know, how does the new look on Giants on offense from a personnel perspective change things against what's probably going to be a top 5 defense in the NFL this year in Dallas? And then the other part of this, while Dallas's personnel is the same, and Paul, this is the point you always make, and you're right about it, the Cowboys play caller is different. Now, I think the offense is going to be structured very similarly. They're saying it's about 75% the same, but it still matters. You know, what way do you call plays? Now, I know the Mike McCarthy quotes that they're going to be a much more run-heavy team from back in February have gotten a lot of traction. Yeah. But you go listen and read to a lot of their beat writers. I talk to people that cover the team down there. They actually think McCarthy, from an overall play percentage standpoint, is going to be pass-heavy more than run-heavy. Because if you go back to his time in Green Bay, they never ran the ball in Green Bay. He was a pass-first guy. So they think more the comment was geared at, when you have a big lead, you're going to run the ball more to try to, play that old school football once you have a lead. I believe Dallas is actually going, if you look at last year, I think Dallas was top 5 in the league in terms of early down run rate on first down in the league last year. I think they're going to be a much higher pass first team on offense this year, which will be interesting.
Well, we don't know because we're not there. We don't know exactly how Pollard feels right now.
I mean, by all accounts, he's been going full in practice.
Seems like it from what we hear, but we haven't been there to watch him.
Right.
We watch Barkley every day, and by the way, he didn't play any preseason snaps. And on the other side of that, he didn't take any days off.
And by the way,
he didn't take a single veteran day off.
No, because the games ended up being. But remember, though, he did not do any of the team stuff on the second Detroit scrimmage day.
That is true.
He only did individuals.
That is true. That is true.
But he held up, is the point.
No, he was fine.
Yeah. So, I don't know what Pollard's situation is, but, at least if you're talking about trying to equate the two offenses, last year's and this year's, you don't have Elliott there anymore. And that was certainly a safety net, if you will.
It was also their short yardage and goal line.
No question.
And he's a bigger bruiser than Tony Pollard, too.
I mean, look, I'm not a McCarthy guy.
Which is, by the way, another reason why I think they're going to pass him more, just because they don't have the horses back there.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I'm not a McCarthy guy, but he'd be a fool not to be leaning a little bit more on the pass, given the fact that they don't have 1A in their running back room.
100% right. I'm with you on that. And then, I think it'll just be a matter to see how they manage that and kind of how that runs and how different it looks. And, I think they seem to indicate they're going to try to push it down the field more. And I'm sorry, you haven't mentioned this yet. Dallas didn't play any of their starters in the preseason. I figured you'd be all over that, Paul. You love it. You usually think it's a pretty big deal.
You know why? Because a lot of teams limit their starters to maybe 5 or 6 snaps or none anyway.
I got you.
Then you got the Chiefs and the Steelers who insist that those guys play.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, look, Joe Burrow didn't play also during the course of the preseason.
Well, that was injury-related more than anything else, right?
No, but the point is that's gone on, though, for every single one of his seasons, too, and the Bengals have been pretty good. So I don't know how much there is to read into that. Could there be some rust in the early stages of the game? Absolutely.
And Dallas's opener record is actually really poor over the last 10 years, except when they played the Giants.
Yeah,
which
I was just going to add that, John.
that is the only.
Thanks for putting that in there.
That is the only team they've beat in their opening weekend. Last year they lost to the Bucs, 19-6, or they could barely score.
Yeah, well, that was the game also
Dak
got hurt too. Remember with the I think 2 years ago.
When did he?
The hand injury.
No, that was last year. I'm trying to think
it was.
when. I'm trying to think when in the game he got hurt.
I want to say maybe third quarter.
I thought it was late.
And maybe it was later than that.
Anyway,
okay, but it was
important.
the game. He definitely did get hurt with respect to that contest. I will say this. I find it hard to believe when they add Brandon Cooks and you have 3 really strong receivers that Mike McCarthy's going to say, we're going to take the ball out of Dak Prescott's hand. So I think everybody read into that. And you don't think Mike McCarthy was trying to play some mind games to see whether or not people will overthink things? Come on.
You're also,
it's not his first rodeo.
Honestly,
you're giving him too much credit.
You're also trying to generate reasons why you let go of an offensive coordinator that helped you lead you to 30 points per game.
That too.
Who, by the way, was on the coaching market for about 35 seconds before he signed the contract with the Chargers.
Well, because the Chargers know that they've had their own fair share of issues, so that's why they decided. But I also would not overlook, by the way, Brian Schottenheimer, who's not a guy that gets a lot of credit. He was actually with Russell Wilson in Seattle not too long ago when they jumped out of the gates, and that Seahawks offense was passing it like crazy. Now, all of a sudden, the second half was not the same thing. Okay, it tailed off. But the point is, I'd be curious what he brings to the table this season as a new voice, too.
Both those guys are from old school West Coast offense coaching trees, right? So are we going to see more of those old school West Coast principles and maybe some of the stuff Kellen Moore rang? I think that'll be interesting to see if that happens. All right, folks, go subscribe to the Giants Huddle podcast. It features long-form interviews, former and current Giants. We got a couple ones up there now. Paul with David Tyree last week is up there. We did our beat reporter roundtable last Friday. Paul Schwartz, Tom Rock, and Art Stapleton and I kind of did a Giants preview. And then I'm not sure if it's up yet, but former NFL executive Michael Lombardi has a new book. Michael Lombardi, he joined me on the Giants Huddle podcast. That should be going up today. So go check that out on giants.com/podcast, your favorite podcast platform, or at your Giants.com/podcast. Check it out. And later in the week, we already have it on tape. Lance is going to talk to Devin McCourty, who's covering the game this Sunday for NBC. So make sure you go check that out later in the week. Huddle is going to be 5 days a week during the series season. I'm not going to let Pearson leave. He's going to be posting podcasts 24 hours a day. So we appreciate his yeoman's work on that. But make sure you check out the Giants Huddle podcast throughout the season. All right, let's get to your calls. Talk Giants, talk Cowboys, talk bold predictions, whatever you want to do right here on Big Blue Kickoff Live at 201-939-4513. Let's go to Cliff in New York. He will lead us off. Hi, Cliff.
Hey, guys. Thanks for everything. It's going to take all week to go over what you just said, you know.
Try to condense it for me, Cliff, okay?
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, I don't mean me right now. I mean all the shows all week.
Yeah.
I mean, you really got it all covered there. With the offensive line, well, before I get to that, going back to the press conference with Dable and Shane a few days ago, everybody's looking for them to say, "Oh, we're going to be great this year," and of course they don't bite on that. But they do say they need to see how they respond to adversity. So I'm here to say I like our chances, and adversity is defined by falling behind during the game, mostly. I'm thinking I don't see why we should be worse than last year at responding to adversity like we did in the opener and against Green Bay especially. I think we with the maturity of the team to this point, the guys that have really established themselves, and the guys from the previous regime that have really established themselves. The rookie, he must be referring to the rookies. How are they going to respond?
Well,
and
Cliff,
I just can't imagine.
I want to add to that a little bit because I don't mean to interrupt you, and you can finish. I think there are two different types of adversity, right? You have adversity within a game. And to that, your point, 100% correct. The Giants dealt with that well last year. They got behind in these games. They came back, had a lot of comeback wins. I agree with you 100%. But I do think there's kind of bigger picture adversity. And even though the Giants did go through a little bit of a rough stretch in the second half of the year, remember, they started the year, was it 5-1 or 6-1 last year? 5-1, right? They started the year 5-1. So they never stared 2-4 in the mirror. Right?
No.
Where everyone's burying them. Like, they never faced that. They were always either in the playoffs or on the verge of being mathematically in the playoffs. They were never, like, in the standings looking up like, oh, man, we just lost 4 out of 6, and, we got to make up 3
never had to play
games.
catch-up in terms of the standings.
Yeah, so I
They
think
were ahead of the pack, not behind it.
Correct. So I think maybe that,
Right.
especially with a rough early season schedule, I think maybe that's the type of adversity you want to see the coaching staff, the players handle in terms of when things start building. Remember, nobody's paying attention to the New York baseball teams right now. All people going to be watching the Jets and the Giants to start this year. So if things don't start well, people are going to start piling, right? Oh, you shouldn't give Daniel Jones that contract. Oh, Brian Dable, 1 year
Right.
wonder. You were just like McAdoo. Now the second year's batting. All
they'll
those
beat on
dopey
Barkley,
things.
too.
Oh, Saquon. Yeah, right. All that stuff. 100%.
No, I was thinking the same thing.
Right.
Remember, they
was thinking
only
the same-
lost two games in a row once last
Yeah,
season too.
right.
I mean, that
Wow,
spells it all out.
I forgot that.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
No.
I was thinking the same thing, that the haters will come out in droves at the drop of a hat early in the season. I
It's
have
New
no
York,
doubt
man.
about that.
Every
That's the way
team
it
deals
is.
with it. It's just the way it goes.
And that's exactly why they were so high on Daniel Jones, because they thought that he
he's
could
like
handle
Eli.
this pressure cooker.
He's like,
That's right.
And that
That's
was a
right.
big part of it. People must understand when they evaluate a quarterback on a particular team
Yep.
and they look at his performance, stats are great. I understand that. But you have to look at the big picture, too, and understand what is his stature in the locker room, his leadership skills, his ability to avoid the kind of stuff that the adversity can set fire to. And Eli was always great at that. Even all the years when the Giants did not win many games and Eli was taking a beating, he was always able to quell the adversity and to quell the fires as much as possible. And that's a big deal in this town.
That's right. They did not run Daniel out of town, and they could have in the first couple of years easily, and he didn't melt at all. And the time that I really thought he showed me that he was really here was in the loss in the third game last year when we were out of the game, and I just thought he showed tremendous leadership and determination in that game that had nothing to do with how many passes he completed. He just wasn't giving them an inch or giving up at all, and I'm sure his teammates noticed that.
Not to take real quickly, not to take anything away from Daniel last season, but I think it should also not be overlooked how much the defense helped the offense's cause last season too. And I think that's why they dealt with adversity very well. Because, I'm bringing up the schedule. I'm just recalling the Chicago game. You had the muff punt by the Bears, so special teams came through. Green Bay, you had that defensive stand at the end of the game on Aaron Rodgers. Baltimore, the Kayvon Thibodeau strip sack and the interception, Julian Love came through with that, okay? And then Jacksonville, right at the end. So, I named 4 straight games where we're not talking about an offensive play. We're talking about defense or special teams helping deal with that.
And to a larger point, Lance, the defense, even when the offense, and look, we talked about the slow starts last year. Mike Kafka's talked about the slow starts last year. The Giants didn't score a lot of points in the first quarter. The defense never let any of those games get out of hand. It was never 17-0, right?
No.
It was only 7-0 or 10-0. So I think Lance would make a great point. The defense kept them in a lot of those games.
Yep.
Right, and I don't see any reason why they should be less effective this year.
Well, it
There's
should be
every
a better
reason
defense.
They'll be more effective.
Better competition,
They should
though,
even
too.
be better.
Yeah.
No, and especially against the run. And I think that's where Dak had a nice break in the second Dallas game last year. They killed us running up the middle in that game. That was one of the games where it was most evident, if I recall right.
Yeah.
And I do think they're going to miss Ezekiel Elliott. I know they think they've got some kind of big bruiser back there. I don't care who it is. And Pollard is a
Not
great
really.
talent. But good. Well, Pollard is a great talent, but I always thought his success had everything to do with Zeke being back there. And I also thought going into last season that I really liked Wink's chances against Dak for some reason. I mean, I had a lot of respect for Dak. He's a very accomplished guy, but I just thought that Wink should really be able to do something against him, and this will be the time that we find out because he's not. They can run the ball like they did last year, we're toast. I just don't think it should happen. It's no way that should happen. We're much stronger up the middle against the run, and with the offensive line.
Yeah, hurry up.
One other thing. With the offensive line, I'll leave you with this question. With Waller on the field, first of all, I hope that's who Micah Parsons decides to pay attention to, number one.
Nah, he won't. His eyes will be on the backfield, not on the guys leaving
Correct.
the backfield.
Much like Isaiah Simmons, his best attribute is pressuring the quarterback.
Okay, well, then the question is, I'll leave you with this. Would Waller's presence make it possible for Bellinger to do a lot more as a blocker? And I'll leave you with that.
Yes. I think that's fair. Busy.
Yeah.
When they go double tight end, yes. How much will they go double tight end in this game? That's a really good question.
Well, it depends on how they handle the offensive line, Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, right? I mean, I think that's going to dictate it all. If the offensive line can't handle those guys, then you're going to be turning to Bellinger as an additional offensive lineman, especially if you don't want to leave Waller back there.
Yeah.
Because if you have to leave Waller back there, you're taking an additional offensive weapon out of the equation. That defeats the purpose of having him on the field.
That's the one way to hinder the potential explosiveness of the Giants wide receiving core, because they're not going to be able to go 2x2 or just limit with one tight end. If you're able to take advantage of the offensive line, now they're going to have to use more double tight ends and more runs. And that will inhibit some of the explosiveness that they believe they've added.
Cliff brought up doing well against Dak. I'll just give you his against the blitz numbers just because Wink blitzes so much. I figured that's the best I can do for you here. Last year against the blitz, 92 of 138. That's around 66% completion percentage, 998 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, 4 picks, and he was sacked 11 times against the blitz. So that's what his numbers were against the blitz last year, which is not that really far out of line with the rest of his regular season stats. So.
And he also only had one outing last season because Cooper Rush started the first game. So
Correct.
We still have a very small sample size in terms of Wink's Giants defense faring against Dak Prescott.
Correct. 201-939-4513. Let's go to Wilson in Roxbury. Hi, Wilson.
Hey, guys. Happy. Hope you guys enjoying your Labor Day weekend. And I know you're working today, but anyway.
Let's keep up that enjoyment with this phone call, Wilson. What's going on?
I don't know about that, but okay. Here we go. Hey, listen. All right. First thing, I got 2 things on the game, and one quick thing. And this is to Paulie mostly, because I have I think Paulie was a little rough last week, and a caller that was talking about Matt Pert right after the Jets game, and Paulie went crazy saying, "Oh, God, you fans. You guys don't see practice, blah." And Paulie, you're right. We don't see practice. But you know what we do see, man? We do see the games. And fans like myself don't practice good. Just play good on Sunday. Because when Joe Judge was here, on top of him being a horrible head coach, you know what we heard all the time? Oh, God, the Giants were the best practicing team in the NFL. And they were an embarrassment on Sunday. So, Paulie, don't get upset when we see on Sundays, and if we see that you're a bad player on Sunday, I don't want to hear that you practice good during the week.
I think it's fair to say Joe Judge was giving you some coach speak when he was talking those ways.
And by the way, it wasn't just Judge. You go back to Shermer, McAdoo, and Coughlin. They would say the same stuff.
Yeah, and if you watched all of Pert's snaps, yes, he had trouble in pass protection against the Jets. It was rough.
But he was good in the first 2 games.
First 2 games, he was good, especially against Detroit. And his run blocking against the Jets was also good. So to be fair, you have to be fair and try to measure both sides of the coin. And both sides of the coin said, how many snaps did he do well? How many snaps did he not do well? And there is still a significant number of good snaps there. And the way people were talking about him and the way that caller talked about him, you would think that he was an XFL tackle who never had one good snap in any game. Honestly.
Paulie, listen, I wasn't talking about Matt. I just brought up Matt Pert because that was the name. I'm talking about players in general. Fans, fans don't listen, man. I don't want to hear that you practice good. We don't want to hear
Wilson,
that.
Of course. No, but Wilson, you're 1,000% right. The only reason we bring up practice the only reason we bring up practice at this time of year is because that's how the coaches are building the 53-man roster. Once you get into the regular season, I don't care what this guy does on a Wednesday or a Thursday. Absolutely.
Well, also, we're not going to be out at practice, too, come the regular season.
That's
right. Not going to be able to give a practice report.
The month or so of training camp, that's the only body of work that we can speak about right now because that's all there is.
Especially when these guys play so few snaps in games.
Exactly. So my ire was specifically directed at the Pert negativity. That's all.
Okay. All right, Paulie. All right. And listen, and on the game, I called like 2 months ago, and I said this was the most important game of the season, and Lance went crazy on me. Paulie, you went crazy. I mean, all you guys did. Even I think Howard went crazy on me. And I want to say something.
On that show?
He probably called in at 5 different points
to
bring up the same thing. Come on. You know his routine. So
listen. No.
Pearson went nuts off camera, too, by the way.
Listen, you know what reality is? This is reality. The reality is that we haven't beaten Dak Prescott since he was a rookie.
Sure, 2016.
And, okay, right. And I don't want to, and fans don't want to hear, well, we closed the gap and we're resilient. No, man. Because you know what happened? If they lose this game and they lose it bad, they're going to be last off the field by the Dallas Cowboys. They're going to say, yeah, you guys closed the gap. They're going to be, the next morning, everybody's going to say, same old Giants, please, blah, 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 blah.
Well, see, Wilson, here you go again with the media reaction. The media reaction doesn't dictate wins and losses in the NFL.
Or the fan reaction, for that matter.
They settle it on the field. So it doesn't matter, to your point, Wilson. I'll let you continue with your whole dissertation. Promise. The listeners are dying to hear. Okay? The bottom line is, okay, you're taking what you hear on sports talk radio the next day, and you're overwhelmed and worried by that. And you have to understand, most of the players, okay, some of the young guys may listen, may go on Twitter, they may see it. I think most of the polished veterans, it goes in one ear and it goes out the other, and they focus on the next game.
And I
really don't think it matters.
And there are 16 other games on the schedule that count the same in the standings.
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing. Hold on. Joe Shane brought this up, and I thought this was an excellent point. The Giants, and I'm not excusing this, I'm not saying that they can afford to lose, but they went 1-4-1 in the division last season, and they still made the playoffs. So that's further of a reason why, even though we sit here and emphasize division this, division that, there's 11 games that have nothing to do with the division. And if you don't handle your business there, that could backfire on you as much as the divisional play.
But I understand that, Lance. Lance, listen, I've been to a Giants-Cowboys game when we sucked. Okay, it's horrible. 60% were Cowboys fans on the game, and they tell us in your face, you guys suck. You guys haven't played, you haven't beat us in God knows how long. I cannot believe that players they don't. This doesn't bother players. It's hard for me to believe that, Lance. What can I say? Maybe I'm wrong.
That's fine.
Thank you, Wilson.
Yeah,
appreciate the call, bud.
I don't think that there are players that have the Bristol network on 24/7, okay? And they're just in the cafeteria. I mean, well, listen, we're in the cafeteria. There's TVs. Do you guys see the players staring up and watching the TV left and right?
No. The volume's also off, but yes.
Okay, no, but I mean, they have every right to look at the bottom line and this and that. I don't see that happening on a consistent basis.
Here's the thing. And look, Wilson makes a point. If you come out and you beat Dallas in week 1, it is a bit of a statement victory. I think that is fair to say. But I will say this too, and this is me being consistent, folks. No matter what happens in week 1, this is why I hate the Giants and Cowboys or any division rivals playing in week 1. Weird things happen in week 1.
Yes.
Yeah. Every year, you go look at week 1, you'll find 1 or 2 games where the results don't make a lick of sense based on what happened the rest of the year. So we could have the Giants come out and blow Dallas out on week 1. We could have Dallas come out and blow out the Giants in week 1. It's not going to matter in terms of I shouldn't say that. It matters. But it's not necessarily going to dictate what the rest of the season looks like for both teams, because in week 1, God help me, I'm making the point here with Paul, you're still figuring things out the first few weeks of the year. So, yes, important. Division game important. Showing, this one's for Lance, you close the gap. Important. But it is not.
Give him a nickel.
Look,
give him a nickel. Come on, give him a nickel.
If the Giants lose to Dallas in week 1, but they come back and they beat Arizona, they win in San Francisco, and then they beat
Miami,
and then they win 2 out of the next 3 against Seattle, Miami, and Buffalo, and they're 4-2 through 6 games.
You'll take it.
I'm not going to care about that first game against Dallas because you went and beat San Francisco, you went and beat either Buffalo or Miami, you beat Seattle, and I'm going to feel good about those games because those are also really good teams that you're competing for playoff spots with.
The one way that Wilson is accurate, the atmosphere between the fans and the media will definitely feel tainted if they lose opening night at home in prime time to the Cowboys.
Especially if it's an uncompetitive loss.
No question. And vice versa. If they beat Dallas, the atmosphere will have a little extra sugar and sweetness to it.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a fact. Atmosphere, yes. There's no doubt.
And the whole country's watching Sunday Night Football.
This game will have a big impact on the atmosphere and the perception of the Giants, but it won't have anything to do with the guys in that locker room.
Great point.
I'll just give you a few examples from week 1 last season. I brought up the scoreboard.
Oh, good. I'm sure there's some wild ones in there.
Bears beat the Niners 19-10. Okay.
Did they really?
So,
Bingo.
yeah.
You didn't have to look far.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
over.
That's
Yeah.
it.
No. Now,
Proof.
in fairness, I believe the weather was awful in Chicago. I think like the field was soaking
It might
wet.
have been a monsoon. Yeah.
Once again, I'm
Still.
not making excuses, but still, they beat them 19-10. I remember, I know this is a divisional game, so this is not as good of an example, but the Bengals were a better team than the Steelers last season, right? Pittsburgh did beat Cincinnati, and Joe Burrow turned the ball over 5 times
That's
in that
significant.
game.
No,
and then the
significant.
Bengals went on. And I'll go back to the example that we talked about. The Cowboys lost to the Bucks 19-3. They only scored 3 points.
Oh, it was
And look
3?
at-
I thought they scored 6. It was
And
only
look
3.
at what happened to Dallas the rest of the season. So, it's another reason why, to your point, I agree. Emotions from the fan base, the media, that's great. But we got a long marathon ahead of ourselves. And it doesn't get dictated by that one contest. And I think
Win or
last
loss,
season,
by
3
the way.
examples spell that out.
Because after a win, people are going to come out here predicting Super Bowl on Monday, and we're going to try
sure.
to pump the brakes on that
Yeah.
the same way if the Giants lose, and people are like, oh my God, they're going to finish in last place. We're going to pump the brakes on you there too.
Maybe even more to the point, and this goes even all the way back, many, many, many years, goes back to Dan Reeves and then Jim Fossil and all those other guys. Parcells didn't do it so much. This is why coaches will always say, we break the season into quarters. Right? They know, because one game does not make or break a season. But if they break it into quarters, they can psychologically talk to the players and say, okay, fellas, take a breath. We've played a month of games. We've played 4 games. We doggy paddled, or maybe we came out on top, or maybe we came out on the bottom. All right, let's take off another small chunk of the next 4 games, and let's see how we can do with those. There's a reason why coaches always talk about
Hey,
that.
look, I'll be honest with you guys. I'm going to be, if we get to September 22nd, I think it is, and the Giants beat either Dallas or San Francisco in week 1 or week 3, that
That's
to me
good.
is a success.
That's good.
Because that means you probably, and again, I hate to do this because every game's competitive. I'm going to try to sell them as an opponent in week 2, so I know what I'm doing here. But you're probably not going to lose to Arizona. So if you could figure out a way to beat Dallas,
why'd you do that?
If you could figure out a way to beat Dallas or San Francisco, that means your first 3 games are probably going to go pretty well if you can win one of those 2 games.
Yeah. It's interesting, and I will never take a game for granted, but Arizona's in a rough position. There's no doubt about
they
it.
are.
Clayton Toon's going to be their starting quarterback in that game, probably. Well,
Who knows? Could be Joshua Dobbs.
too.
Yeah,
it could
don't
be
sell low on Joshua Dobbs here, perhaps. But I guess the more and more I think about it, I would say I'd probably want the Cardinals game on Thursday as opposed to Sunday. I'd rather take my chances on a short weekend. I know they're staying out on the West Coast.
No,
but my
you're
point
100%
is,
right.
I'd rather get that team with all its question marks on the short week as opposed to the Niners. That's the dangerous
Who's
setup.
San
though.
Fran playing?
Who are they
Week
playing
2?
leading into
Yeah,
that?
look that up,
Well,
Les.
they
I
have.
do have
I
the
know they
schedule
have
in front of you,
Pittsburgh to
right?
open up the season. Let me see. I'll bring up the schedule.
are
They have
they
the
home?
Rams. The Rams. They're on the road in L.A., but they're not that far.
that's not much
they're
of
not
a
that
road
far.
trip.
California.
Yeah.
It's not a road trip. And that's
No.
the thing. And the 49ers, they're so physical, too.
Sure.
They are going to beat the hell out of you in that game, too. And
Yeah,
you don't
well, that's why
that.
you want
Yeah,
them
correct.
also on that situation.
Well, at least you get a little bit of more of a rest period after the
Correct.
game now on the Thursday, but
Yeah.
still.
Well,
not
one
what
other
you want.
thing, real quick, that I just want to throw out. I just want to use college football as an example to make the point about you can't get too high, you can't get too low after one game. I think that's occurring right now with Colorado and
Yeah.
Deion Sanders.
Yeah, right.
Is it not? Right?
That was a hell of a game,
Huge
by
win.
the way. Great
no,
win.
huge win, but they didn't win the championship. So let's calm down and let's see more and let's see how this season
Yeah, because maybe
progresses.
we get to it and maybe TCU ends up not being very good.
100%.
You know what I mean? I know they're a top 25 team or whatever. 19.
Yeah, but-
Preseason
but they-
rankings mean nothing.
Yeah,
Correct.
exactly.
Exactly,
And they're
right.
17th, and they lost Max Duggan, their starting quarterback
Right.
last season. So
All right, folks, go run or walk with Giants legends. The Giants Foundation will host a 5K race and kids run presented by Quest on Sunday, October 8th at 9 a.m. at MetLife Stadium. Net proceeds will benefit the Giants Foundation. All participants will receive a commemorative T-shirt. After the race, stay for a post-race festival with appearances by Giants legends and a live DJ. Register now at Giants.com/5K. In the same way, folks, you want tickets? Season tickets, single game tickets, we'll go to Giants.com/tickets. Limited inventory is available. For a season ticket membership, you stay connected to the club all year round. You get a lot of extra bonuses. And then single game tickets, there are tickets available, folks, so go find them. They might be scarce for Sunday night, but you can go check it out and do your best. Giants.com/tickets. And finally, the Giants official connected TV streaming app, Giants TV, brings original video content, game highlights on demand, and direct to Big Blue fans. Giants TV is free on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and the Giants mobile app. All right, let's try to squeeze in 2 more before we go here. Let's go to Dave in Cranford. He'll be up first. Dave, what's going on, man?
Hey, John, I got your second check, and it bounced just like the first one, bro. So I just want to let you know.
Sorry.
You know?
I send bad checks, Dave. What can I tell you?
I know, that 1 cent, for all my love for, BBKL and all you do, that 1 cent check, it never goes through. All right, so in all seriousness, always a shout out to the work that the 3 of you guys do, the rest of your teammates, everybody. It's just unbelievable. But second thing is the thing that I look at going into this game, is the ability for our coaches to have the time that they've had to scheme and plan for this game as well as the season. And I look back on last year, and if you really take the time, which I do, I've watched every game 3 or 4 times, all 22, all the fun stuff. They changed their scheme multiple times with, from week to week, particularly their running scheme. I mean, it was very diverse during the season, but also their passing scheme, particularly towards the end of the year.
Sure.
Very, very different. And they did that on short weeks, as a result of what was working, what wasn't working. So going into this game, I might be crazy, but I have very high hopes that they are going to be and I actually think about this as for the whole season. I think the Giants have a scheme advantage and a coaching advantage over most of their opponents. I think Miami's got a good coaching staff between Fangio and the head coach. Fangio, I think obviously the 49ers, there's some guys that I think match up with them, but I think there's many times where this coaching staff, from a scheme standpoint, is going to put the Giants in an advantage to win, and I think that's going to be the difference, to their success. So, love you guys. Know you got more callers. Just wanted to say that and get your input.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate
John,
the
real
call.
quick, I want to piggyback off of that because not only is that something that I do believe as well, and I've been telling people a lot of that off the air, but I think it goes back to that adversity point that you brought up earlier. I know that the Giants did not lose more than 2 games in a row last season, and that's obviously a blessing for any rookie head coach to have. But I truly believe that this coaching staff is very much equipped, and the locker room follows their leaders. I think these guys are very, very knowledgeable, very smart, very respectful of the professionalism that they have garnered in that room. And I think they're able to fight off a lot of that adversity because it comes from the top. I really believe that. Now, we won't know until, God forbid, they lose 3 games in a row. Then we'll really know because they'll be tested. My suspicion is that this locker room would not crumble under that situation because this staff won't let it. That's just a suspicion, a gut feeling.
I think that's fair, and I'll just say this too. Remember, the opponent also has all that extra time to scheme too. And I know we've talked about Mike McCarthy a lot on this show. He still does know how to win regular season games. His playoff success has been spotty at best, but he does know how to win regular season games, and Dan Quinn is one of the best game planners on the defensive side of the ball in football. So.
To that point, though, this division is not only very tough, but they play the AFC East, which means throughout the season, it's a higher caliber of opponent.
Yeah, you're right.
So I think that McCarthy's going to be playing a lot more playoff caliber teams.
And closer games with the time management factor.
Much more so than he did for many years in Green Bay.
That's a good point, too.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, everybody in the NFC East is going to have to up the ante because they're all getting the AFC East. I mean, that's an even playing field from that standpoint.
Same with the AFC East, but they're getting the NFC East. Same
Correct,
deal.
exactly. It goes both ways. I mean, the other thing to take into consideration, and I do think it's a fair point, that the Giants did evolve, and they didn't show the same colors every single game, but in fairness, there's a lot more film on the Giants now entering this year than there was at this time last year. And you wonder, is that why they managed to out-scheme so many people? Because nobody knew a Wink Martindale Giants defense. Nobody knew a Dable and Kafka Giants offense.
Is that they were able to do that towards the end of the year, too. So that is a positive for sure.
No, there's no doubt about it. But, once again, I just think that's something to take into consideration. And also, remember, they happened to play the Vikings, the team they beat in the playoffs, in a very close proximity to the regular season game. Yeah. So there was a lot of familiarity to aid in preparing for the second go-around, too.
Yeah, and while they closed the season strong, their second-half record was a dip as opposed to the first half. But they close the season strong with the Vikings and the Colts. So 201-939-4513. Not so much with Philadelphia. Lance, I know you're heartbroken. We have to squeeze in Charlie in Portland, Maine for a really quick call here.
But we don't have to squeeze it. You choose to
Nobody's
squeeze
not
it.
going to have much time to make all those points. It's too bad. Hi, Charlie.
Hey, three amigos. How you doing?
Hi.
Bien.
Hola.
Hey, look, I got a couple things. I'll try to make it quick.
Sure.
For one thing, Brian is a little heckle and jive. Not heckle, but he's
Heckle and Jide, yeah. Dr. Heckle and Jide, man. I remember.
Dr. Heckle and Mr. Jide.
All those programs, man.
Yeah.
Dr. Heckle and Mr. Jide, yeah.
I love that.
Love
That'd be a good cartoon, actually. That
Oh,
would be
tremendous,
good.
yeah. I don't know what channel it aired on, but I'll try to find it
you had
somehow.
20
Charlie's
minutes. You
brain.
had 20 minutes to get that right while
Yeah.
you were on hold.
He could have Googled it. He could have practiced it, Pearson, during the week.
Wow.
And he just fumbled
Jekyll
it.
and Hyde. He's a little Jekyll and Hyde. You see him on the sideline. He freaks out. And so, look, if we lose 3 games in a row, that guy's not going to be calm on the sideline. So I don't know what you're thinking, John, but I think he's going to be a little upset. Well, you were saying that he's level-headed, or somebody was saying.
I was talking about his ability and his
Oh,
staff's ability to handle adversity. It's a prediction. I don't know because they haven't had to lose 3 games in a row yet. But that's my gut feel.
All I'm saying, he's a little, like he's a Jekyll and a Hyde.
Let me ask you a question. No, let me ask you one question before you go on. Did you ever see Bill Parcells on the sidelines? Did you ever see Tom Coughlin on the sidelines?
Yeah,
Did they ever yell and get into it with their players and their officials?
In fact, most coaches are that way.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
so
an emotional game.
You want to put a black mark on Brian Dable because he gets emotional on the sidelines, but it's okay for guys who won Super Bowls to do it.
No. All I was saying.
No, I know what you said, and I heard it.
I'm just look. The thing is like when you guys bring up haters, like just because somebody sees something different, it's kind of like.
When do I say haters? I don't say haters.
Not you, John.
What's different?
The last caller talked about all the haters are going to call up if we lose that game. They're not haters, okay? Look, you have 2 sides of a coin, all right? There's always 2 sides of the coin. Even if you put the same picture on both sides, there's 2 sides to the coin. And all those people are doing is bringing up the other side of the coin, which some people do never want to bring up. So that's all I'm saying. They're not haters. They're just bringing up the other side of the coin of looking at the New York Giants.
Charlie, here's where you're right.
That's fine. That's fair.
Nobody ever played a perfect game. That doesn't exist. Okay,
Oh, no.
Baseball.
so there will always
But
be.
go ahead, yes.
Okay, very good,
Well,
very
I
good,
just,
Lance.
listen.
Very good in football.
Okay.
No one's ever played a
Neither has
perfect game,
Michael
so you are
Jordan.
correct.
He hasn't either.
Win or lose, head coaches will always find ways to nitpick and find things that they need to fix the following week. So that's true. And if you want to be that guy who always finds something wrong, even if the Giants win 56-0, you go right ahead and do that because that's the way you are.
And Charlie, here's the thing with the emotional side of things. In defense of what Paul was saying with respect to Brian Dable, Tom Brady, throws things all the time on the sideline.
He has gone through more of those tablets.
And the last time I checked,
Belichick broke a tablet on the bench.
Yeah, Steve Kerr during the Golden State Warriors runs would take a clipboard and just bend it himself in half because he was so frustrated. Patrick Mahomes and Eric Bieniemy have had some run-ins on the sideline. So we're talking about some of the most accomplished athletes and coaches in sports history, not just football.
You should see what Pearson does when we go past 1:30.
He's already. We're beyond it already. Thank goodness he's not on camera right now.
He's pulling his hair out as we speak.
I'm actually surprised we're still on air. The buttons on the mixer are half broken.
Go
at this
ahead,
point.
Charlie.
Yeah.
What else do you have?
That's it. I look. We should beat them. There should be no doubt about it. But if we don't, this is a big game because we're not playing the AFC South this year, so we're not going to be able to make it up.
Hey, Charlie, thank you very much for the call. All the games are important. We say that all the time. Every game matters. Before we say goodbye, I'm going to give Lance one more second. You actually didn't bring up Deuce Vaughn today. I'm a little crushed.
What, with respect to the running backs?
Yeah.
Well, the only thing that was brought up with respect to the backfield is, and I would agree, I think they don't necessarily have a big bruiser on the roster.
Fellow
so that remains to be
sub
seen.
5'7"ers
5'5", yeah, 180.
unite.
I think, no, listen, good talent, but, we don't know what to operate with respect to what he's going to bring to the table because he hasn't played an NFL game. Listen, I'm going to be fair to every team. I'm not going to give the benefit of the doubt to anyone.
Give you I wasn't to rep the little guys, Lance. That's all I'm trying to
absolutely.
do for you.
But remember, after Trindon Holiday didn't work out, we're a little cautious in that department.
Okay, I see.
Well, listen, here's the good news. Deuce Vaughn, it doesn't seem like he's dealing with a nagging hamstring injury. So as long as you don't deal with a nagging hamstring injury. Well, what? That was Trindon Holiday's issue.
Yes,
right?
I know.
We talked about him all offseason, and he winds up getting a hamstring injury right before
Did you have to kick Holiday in the forehead?
I wasn't, but that's...
You notice I said forehead.
Yes. Well, he's the poster child of the point of this conversation.
I know.
Yes.
I should give you a chance.
Well, if you try to do that, I duck, just in case you were insinuating. Okay. That did go over my head. You see? Look
Very
at you.
nice.
Tremendous. Yeah,
That's a good
I'm here
way
all
to
week,
end.
by the way. Yeah, thank you.
Everybody enjoy the rest of your Labor Day. For Lance Meadow, Paul Dottino, I'm John Schmelk. I know we didn't get any bold predictions today. I'm surprised. So I already told Madeline and Howard, so they're going to be ready tomorrow. Call them in with your bold predictions. We'll track them on our little document here on the computer. And we'll track those and see how wrong all of us are as we go through the season because none of us ever read about anything. So just kind of how it goes. Enjoy the rest of your holiday, your Labor Day, and then we're back every day, all week, the rest of the season at 12:30 on Big Blue Kickoff Live. For the guys, for Pearson, I'm Schmelk. We'll see you then.